Hi Stampers! Welcome to Great Inspirations. My name is Kim Tolbert and I create handmade cards and share my ideas with you. I'm very glad you joined me today because today we are going to take a little vacation to the beach through making our cards, of course. I am a person who feels perfectly at home at the beach, and there is no reason for that. I grew up on a farm in southeastern Indiana. Never been to a beach till I was 17 years old, maybe 14, but somewhere in there. And I instantly fell in love. I felt so at home, and I just love to be at the beach. Well, I probably won't be going to the beach this summer, but I can still make some cards with the beach theme. And so what I thought I would do is I would just show you some of the ways that I make water. And they don't take any extraordinary supplies, no specific paper or anything like that. Use what you have at home, and I bet you have more than you think you do, and you can make some water. Now here are the 5 cards that represent the 5 ways that I've made some water, made some waves. And on this little card right here, I've simply sponged the background, or you can use a blending brush. I have my little image here. And then I had a stamp, and it was little waves. And I found some others. When I went through some of my stamps, I found other stamps that were not necessarily a water theme, beach theme, ocean theme stamp set, but it still had things that I could use for water. So I encourage you to look through your stamps and see what you have. And all I just stamped them on there, just some ink. And then the next way, right here with these 3 ladies on the beach here, I just did some masking. Well, first I did some paper tearing to get my mask, and then I did some masking and just some ink blending, and then I went back with a white gel pen and added just some highlights here and there, right here, to kind of make it look like a little bit of foam. And there is my 3 ladies on the beach. So that's just with blending brushes. You could also use sponges. I'm just doing some masking there. And then this is fairly easy. I just looked through my patterned papers, and I found this one, and I found several more that I could use to kind of convey the idea of an ocean. Very simple. I just added some die cuts and a greeting. And this one, I went through all my dies, and I had several dies that were sort of represented water or waves. But this one was actually supposed to be clouds. I just used the other side of it, which you might call the negative side, but it's a border die, so it doesn't really have necessarily a positive or negative piece as we would normally think of it. But I just used them. Don't know if you can see, there's 3 of them. I've just adhered one on top of the other and made some nice little waves. The thing I liked about this one is the die sort of mashed down the edge here, and it made it a little, it gave it a sheen. So it made it look a little shiny, added to the look of waves. And then the last thing I did was I used an embossing folder. This one had some waves on it, and just some designer paper. You could also use cardstock, just again to give that look of an ocean. And then here I found some paper that kind of looked like sand, so I just used that for the beach. And there is that card. Now I will go through with you how I did each of these, and we will start with just doing some stamping. So here is this card, and I'll pull out my supplies. I'm going to need some ink. Here's that stamp I was telling you about. It's kind of a scallop design. And then I have a focal panel here, which of course you could, after you complete it, you can mat it on some cardstock and then put it on your card base. But the water I have on here is fairly light. I've just used a blending brush. And then here's the sky, and I have some die cuts here, clouds and the sun, and here the little kids are having a good time in the water and the sunshine. So I'm going to use some Asia Afternoon. This is a Stampin' Up! Color that I do like very much. It's nice and bright. I'm just going to ink up my stamp. But because it is so nice and bright and very rich, I'm just going to stamp off. And then I'm going to stamp on my panel. And I'm not going to start in the middle. I'm going to start over here in the edge. I'm going to ink it up again, stamp off, stamp over this way, and just continue until I have all the waves that I want. And then you could add more here or down here. And then I just added my greeting, and that's just how simple it was to make that ocean on that card. So now what if, let's say you don't have a stamp that is, you know, scallops or a wave or something that you could use for water. Well, an alternative is you might have one of these. Can you see that? I took this out of my grandkids' art supplies. But it has here, to kind of look this way, it has some scallops. And they're different sizes. This one's a 3-inch, 2, 1.5, 1 1/4, and 1. And I thought we could pretend this is our water. We could maybe color our image, fussy cut it, and put it on here. Or you could use this directly on your paper there. But all you have to do is kind of decide where you want it. I'm going to use a darker marker so you can see what I'm doing. And you can just make you some waves. Maybe, if I can get a hold of it. Let's get it right here, line it up. You just keep moving it over. Now these are bigger. I think you can find these that have smaller scallops, because I think I have one somewhere. But as you can see, you can have a wave pattern, then you can just kind of come down here and start it over. Like that. So that's another way you could get an ocean look on your cards. So we'll put all these things away, because we've got, here, let me put these over here. We've completed this one. Now let's talk about the masking. So here's this card. So I just took some cardstock, and this piece happens to be 5 by 3 3/4, but this was 5 1/4 by 4. It doesn't matter. The process is the same. And of course, I had my 3 ladies. Now this is one stamp. And so what I did, I stamped it on another piece of paper, and then I just made masks. As you can see, these are been well used. And I just put my ladies on here. And you can use masking paper, or this is just printer paper, and I've used some of that removable adhesive. It works really well for this. Just put them on there, and then I kind of thought, well, I do want there to be some sand, for them to be sitting in the sand, and this is the mask I use. And the way I made that mask was, I just took some paper, and this again, printer paper. If you have masking paper, you may use that as well. It will work. And I just started tearing, and just tear towards you. And then I just kind of went back and forth until I got something that I liked. And then I took, get a mat here, I took my removable adhesive and I just put some on there. And I decided, where do I want that sand? How far? And I just placed this across here, right like that. I grabbed a blending brush and a color for sand, and I'm going to use a little crumb cake. I'm just going to get a little ink on my brush. And then I just start blending. Just like that. And you can put as much or as little as you want on here. I think I'll do a little more here. Just give you an idea. And then we'll remove the mask. And you can see the sand. And of course I used a little dot stamp to kind of put a little texture in the sand. So you can do that if you like. Close up that ink. And now I'm going to move up and do a lighter part of the ocean, because as the ocean comes in, the water's kind of foamy. It's not quite as dark as farther out. I'm not going to worry about this down here. It will be just fine. I'm going to use a light color of ink. You can use the blue greens, blues, or green, whatever color you want your ocean to be. Give me some ink on here. And then I'm just going to start adding it. Getting a little color on there. And there we go. And now I go to a darker color. And I really don't have to worry about my blending brush too much, because this is a darker color than the one I just used. So I'm just going to get some ink on it. Put my mask on here. And we start adding our ink. And it's okay to go down below this line. It just helps it blend more. And that's all there is to it. And then you would just continue. Now on this one, I used the 3 colors of sort of like turquoise. And then I turned my mask with the straight edge down. Oh, I have to go down a little farther because you wouldn't have much sky with that. Kind of like this. That's not right. I did it this way. Like this. And I went over it with some blue, just kind of a medium blue. And that was great, but it left a very straight line, as it will. And that's why I took that gel pen and just went across there. Just kind of did a few little curvy lines, just barely curved them. And it gave a little more separation between the sky and the ocean. It just looked a little better. So you could do that. But I think you get the idea. So we'll just take out our gel pen. Now, if you don't have a gel pen, but say you have a white marker or a chalk marker or something like that, or even if you have a paint pen, it'll work. And all I did was I just went along this edge where the water was, and I just made little tiny round marks, just like that, round and round and round. Did it here along the sand, and then I did it between the different shades of the water right here. And it kind of gives it that look of roll, the waves are rolling in. And then every now and again I just kind of added a few little, I know those are hard to see, but just, well, that one you can't even see. But they are there. They show up better here. It's all dried. And I might have gone over it a second time, actually. But that is how I did that. Masked and do some ink blending. So that's our second method that we can get an ocean look. And the third one is super easy, and I think I like it better than any of them, because I just took a piece of pattern paper and cut it the size I wanted and just added some images to give it that illusion of an ocean. And I know you're thinking, I don't have that paper. Or you might be thinking, you know what, I might have that paper. But it doesn't matter, because just look through your papers. I mean, here is that one, the design I used there. But here's one I found, and I've probably had this for years, and that's why I'm encouraging you. Go through your things. Let's use up what we've been collecting. But this has little waves. That would make a nice background. And anything that has like a scalloped pattern would be good. This one, it's like marbled, but that would make a nice ocean. And this is kind of the same. You could make an ocean look out of that as well. And then here are some, I think they're actually supposed to resemble water. Stampin' Up! Put these out a few years back. So if you go through your papers, you may find many, many designs that you could use for a background that would just say ocean. Because we don't have to recreate reality, we just have to recreate that idea. You know what I mean? The illusion of. So we're going to move on to the next one. It's my die cut layers. And this one is fairly simple as well. And I have several samples here. But what I did for this one particularly, I cut 1-inch strips. I think they're 1 by 4. But you could use whatever width your focal panel is. That's how long you want to cut the strips. But I did them 1 inch wide. Now you can make it a little wider if you like. It's up to you. But all I did was I just sort of lined them up. And when I got them to where I liked them, and I put them on here, and I kind of, well, where do I want that one? And then well, maybe I don't want that one there. Maybe I want this one here, because they're each a little different. And then I just line them up. And see, for this one, I needed a little longer piece. Well, you could cut another 1-inch piece, or you can just go cut a piece that's just a little bit bigger, like 1 1/4 or 1 1/2 inches. And there you go. And then all you need to do is trim off the sides and trim off any at the bottom. But there would be your waves. And of course, if you want, you could take a sponge or even a blending brush and go along the edges here to add a little more dimension. But I thought this looked just fine like that. Now, I found some other dies that I had, and one of them, it makes little waves like this that would be good to use. Here we go. Then I had one that made this kind of a wave right here. And then I had this one, which I thought was pretty cool. I mean, I just started looking for dies to see what looked like it could be a wave. And those are what I found. And I did cut mine out of cardstock, but there's no reason you can't cut it out of pattern paper, because I thought this might make a pretty design, and cut it out in the wave shape. That would be pretty. Or be, you know, it just looks bright and fun. Now, if you wanted to make a more dramatic card, a ship on the ocean or something, I thought this would be nice. Make a masculine card. And like I said, these were not necessarily wave dies, because this is the die I cut it with. It's supposed to be clouds. But when you do it this way, it's waves. And then I found this one, waves or waves. And then I found make some waves out of this and just kind of layer them like I did. And then I think this one is actually supposed to be waves. It's got a little texture on it. Of course, you'd have to cut out, you know, several, but I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, I just started going through my dies, and I didn't even go through half of them, and this is what I found. So I just encourage you to go through your things and see what you can find that might work to make some ocean waves. And now the very last one is this one with the embossing folder. And this embossing folder I have had for forever. It's this one right here. It's by Doris. I'm not sure how to even say it, but I thought surely this is not still available. Well, guess what? It is. I found it. And in my corresponding blog post, there'll be a link to where I found it. And there's a link to some other of the images and products I've used on my corresponding blog post. And of course, there are measurements and list of things you will need to complete each of these methods. So here's this one. But then I looked and I found this one. I think it's a Stampin' Up! One, but it was when they were partnering with Sizzix to make their embossing folders. And I think this is actually supposed to be ribbon, but it certainly can have that look of waves on this side or even on this side. And then I found another one, and I just put it in this way, and it has that wavy pattern that you can give that idea of an ocean. So that's what I found looking through my things. And like I say, I do definitely encourage you to go through all of your supplies that you have. Just go through your stash. And before long, I bet you'll come up with plenty of supplies and tools to make your own ocean cards. Once again, the measurements and the supplies that I used, as far as the general supplies I used for these 5 methods to create the look of an ocean, all of that will be found on my corresponding blog post, and the link to that blog post is in the description of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until next time, stamp happy.